communication is me, so I'm really interested. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Mike, our director, was working in his bedroom, and that's where I'm really not making any of this up, I swear. And that's where the film was made until a year ago when we finally had enough money to get studio space. And I am a publicist by trade, but I've been a publicist in entertainment for about 10 years. And I had just moved into a new apartment in New York, and I spent about 15 grand cash moving in. And I had this great backyard, and I wanted patio furniture, but I didn't want to put it on credit, and I had no cash left. And so I went on Craigslist to find a gig to pay me, a couple grand so I could buy some lawn chairs or something, and this was it.
Wow.
And the same with our editor and co-producer. Yeah, I mean, they weren't all looking for lawn furniture, but Craigslist, yeah.
Could I take one or two quick questions from the audience? I'll just repeat it, so just sort of shout it out if you have one so far. We're only a third of the way into the film, I think. Way in the back.
I'm sorry?
Where else did you go apart from the first place to see?
She was about to answer it, but yeah.
Here. I'll just get a mic back there for you.
Okay.
Sorry. Oops, sorry.
Don't trip.
I will.
Craigslist.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you focus in just one city, or were you nationwide in your scope of looking at patients and their reaction to music?
We wish, this production was really done on a shoestring budget, so we had to keep filming to sort of New York and surrounding areas. One of the couples, and I don't think you've seen them yet, they are in Toronto, but we didn't have the money to sort of, go all around the country, yeah.
Are you going to go now to other cities?
Oh, no, the movie's, it's, the picture's locked. We don't have really any, unless we made sort of like a part 2 or a sequel or something, we wouldn't have any.
We'll get the whole panel up here. Here's Arthur.
This is stand-up. Did you guys know that it's actually a stand-up comedy night in disguise? We need you to help run the file. Sorry for the inside baseball. We're going to do a little speaker swap. This is Arthur Blum.
Who is, you'll be hearing more from him Thursday. We have a panel on the arts and healing. And Arthur has done remarkable work, particularly with veterans, wounded warriors and music. He's a composer. He's the band leader of, what do you call the band?
The Music Corps Wounded Warrior Band.
Wounded Warrior Band. So you had some reactions already, just in the initial part of the film. Just tell people what you were thinking.
Right, thanks. It's interesting just looking at the similarities that you might not expect between this population of elderly people who get dementia and the folks that I work with. Sort of very, very different, but similar. The people I work with are largely young, who've basically been severely wounded, blown up. So you have these very young people who suddenly have the very same experiences that some of these elderly people are talking about: loss of identity, loss of memory, and all of these things. Because when they experience these terrible weapons, aside from everything else that happens, there's almost traumatic brain injuries is very common. The brains rattle in their skull. So what we found, I'm a musician. I started doing this as a musician, as an experiment, and we were blown away by the results. And one after the next, more and more people wanted to do it, and we were getting referrals for people that were having difficulty with conventional therapy. Is that the music was bringing them back. One of the first people that I met there was a guy. He had just turned 18. He was blown up shortly after his 18th birthday, and I didn't think we would work with him because as we looked around at the different soldiers, he just wasn't talking. He was gone. He was not communicating. There was a volunteer that came by that said that he was the one she would pray for. And then one day he picked up a guitar instead of going to a barbecue and literally never put it down. He was from a small town in Idaho, and he discovered Beethoven sonatas on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, he decided he liked Wilhelm Kempff because it was non-showy Beethoven and started playing the piano. And here you have this young soldier, Walter Reed, literally playing music more than 10 hours every day. And this became what he did at Walter Reed. And he woke up and he started talking and socializing, and this brought him back. So it's just, there are stories and stories and stories, and it just really blows us away.
Actually, we don't want to spoil the fun for Thursday, but there are two categories: people who come new to music or to making music, and people for whom it's something that they already had. Can you just give them a teaser for what we'll talk about tomorrow night related to that? Sort of the ones who just dive in and get so excited about it. I mean, that's what you just described, but there's another category as well.
Right, so that was someone who had never played before, and then this became what he did at Walter Reed. And just an interesting side note is that, and we can talk about them more, they get really, really good. I mean, if you have, even as a social experiment, a bunch of people for several years, and this is what they concentrate on many, many hours a day, they get very good. And that's also the circumstance that has us do this, is that the medicine saves their life, and they can be in the hospital for what can be years, with day after day of a lot of downtime of just, being in the room and being depressed. And then they do this instead. And aside from all the good things it does for them, physically, mentally, emotionally, they get very good. But the other side of it is people that have played an instrument before, they get injured, and they think that they'll never be able to play again. If they play the piano or they play the guitar and they lose an arm or fingers, it's very common to have all sorts of injuries. I mean, the bomb sort of blows up everything. Our program is very intensive. Our model, instead of a traditional music therapist, we use professional musicians. It's sort of like a music conservatory within the hospital. We find great musicians in DC, we bring musicians from outside, and independently they tell me this again and again, that they never thought they would play again, and here they are actually playing better than they used to play. So the meaning of that is that it goes far beyond music. I mean, their life has changed in an instant. So, suddenly they're in a hospital room and half their body's gone, and everything they assumed about their lives has changed. But if they see that, I'll never be able to play. I used to love guitar, and now I can't play anymore. They work, and we figure out the logistics of it, the puzzle of it, and they're actually better now than they used to be. They feel, that becomes a metaphor for the rest of their life, and that their injuries don't have to hold them back from doing anything.
Are we ready, or I could ask Huntington to come up too?
Thank you for just sitting through our first intermission this evening. I think we have figured out the technical difficulties, so we will resume the conversation with our panelists after the film, and I think, fingers and toes crossed, that we're good to go. Thank you again for being so patient.
Dwarfs what it would take to deliver.
So why don't these people have their music already? And why does it take an outsider like Dan to get it for them?
We'll keep this spry because it's been a long day, at least for me. I'm sure for some of you too. First day, and you did have brief introductions to everyone before, and you can, in your brochures and your flyers and on the website, you know who they are. But I'd love to start with Alexandra, and just if you could just give us a little portrait of the director who couldn't come because of a family emergency or of some kind. Just tell us about his spirit. What brought him to this?
Oh yeah, Mike is my best friend.
Through Craigslist.
Right. No, he's great. I mean, I think, this film was accidental, I think, for Mike and myself and everybody else involved with it. Something about the subject matter and sort of more deeply what is going on here really struck us. I think Mike would say, and I hate to speak for him, but I feel sort of comfortable saying this. I think he would say that this film is not, for him, about Alzheimer's. It's not about nursing homes. It's not really even about music. It's about connectivity and sort of the hope for an elevation of consciousness as it pertains how we treat each other, really regardless of age even. Yeah.
Well, actually a song comes to mind. John Prine wrote a great song, Hello in There, about old people. And it's literally hello in there, about the invisibility of so many lives. Huntington Potter over here, University of Colorado, Denver, a recent arrival there from Harvard, longtime Alzheimer's researcher. How much of, in your impression of the film, what you saw, how much of what you're seeing would you say is the music versus just this people paying attention to people? Yeah. Can you hear it? Is your mic on? Your mic's not on. Or we could just get that the handheld mic again.
What I'm saying is that this is really both, the music and the interaction with your past that comes from the music.
So there is a triggering or of some kind there?
Yes, there's a trigger, and it may be a visual memory, it may be a auditory memory, such as music, it may be an olfactory memory, because people with Alzheimer's disease don't, until very late, lose their old memories. But because they don't communicate well and they're not paid attention to as real people as they should be, then their previous memories are not taken advantage of. And that's what's so moving about this film, is that it really takes the best of them as a person and brings it out.
So Arthur, again, if we could just get back to this idea of the relationship you've seen to what you saw in the film and what you've seen with young people who've been sort of incapacitated early in life as opposed to losing their capacity late in life. Just get at that one more time. Is there any aspect of this film that really resonates the most? And then we'll try to get some questions.
I guess just how much it means.
Pass him the mic. I think we might just do the mic.
I guess just how much it means. We have in our program, I mentioned before that some of the patients were very, very good, and we formed a band and performed with some really wonderful musicians, Ophelia Mom, Roger Waters, I don't remember, and some others. But 99% of what we do, no one will ever see, and it's just, you and someone who's really working for a few hours in the room without anybody else seeing what's going on, and it's virtually impossible to really express how much it means for that person. And I remember again many times, but getting past. I'm sorry I'm late for the last time I was having my finger taken off. This person's apologizing to me because he had to get another finger amputated, but I wasn't going to stop him from coming to. And it's impossible to express how hungry they are for it, and just what a huge impact it makes on them. And so what's great about the film is that you see, I guess one difference is that the people in our program are doing music. They're learning and playing music. These people just by listening to music is transformational, but you know, if you told someone about that, you can see it and feel it as much as seeing the film. You just really, each person in their own way and their own history and their own background, their own personality just means so much to them, and so that I felt that kinship with it.
Actually, Huntington, I'd love a little bit more on the neurology from you. What are we seeing here? There was some description of how the music part of our brain is one of the last parts to go. Do you have some way you can clarify what you know about any of that? You know, how that's working?
Well, we don't really know exactly how memories of music or even any memories are encoded in the brain. But what happens in Alzheimer's disease is that new memories can't be formed. So these people still have their old memories, and what we're trying to do in the laboratory at the Anschutz Medical Campus, of course, and elsewhere around the world, is to try to develop ways to help people retain the ability to make new memories. And so I sort of liken this catastrophe to a leaky boat in a tsunami. We have to be able to fix the leak, which is what the scientists are trying to do, but also bail the water that's already in and get rid of it. And that's what this kind of therapy can do.
And just the reconnections, I think emotionally. Then there's the emotional part, which is different than the sort of memory and cognitive function. What about the emotions? How does, as a neurologist, when you look at that aspect of this, what are you thinking?
Well, they're
or
harder
feeling?
to measure, of course, but they do make us happier. I mean, if we have a happy relationship, even if it's not cognitively stimulating, we go through life a happy person. So that's something that you know, scientists and physicians are beginning to realize more and more, that you have to treat the whole person, not just the symptom you see in front of you.
Alexandra, is there any attempt to build on that YouTube virality? Is there a campaign, an active campaign to try to spread this practice of providing iPods and stuff, do you know, or is
Well,
this...
Music and Memory is its own separate organization. I think that they've seen, you know, they've experienced great strides since the clip went viral. When we started filming, Dan was in one nursing home. When the clip went viral, he was in 50, and today he's in over 500. And I think, you know, as many eyeballs as possible that could see the film will sort of help this therapy proliferate.
So if there are questions out there in the darkness from here, sort of raise your hand. I can kind of see you. Oh, over here. And then I'll repeat the question if we can't get a mic to you. Or there's the mic.
That was amazing. I was wondering how long the effects of the music last, both in the case of the traumatic injuries and also for the dementia patients, because at least in the case of the Alzheimer's patients, if they can't remember shortly thereafter that they listen to the music, how long do the emotional effects from the music tend to last?
So I think sort of, you know, what you're seeing here was primed for film, but I think that the therapy overall is sort of about a quality of life improvement writ large, and not just sort of moments that you see here. And so I think if you asked caregivers or family members sort of over an arc of time what they saw, it's sort of less anxiety, less stress, ease in dealing with the patient, a greater sense of connectivity even between family members and caregivers and things like that. It's not meant to do what you saw with Henry. It's meant to sort of improve life overall, you know?
One thing that is very clear in people with Alzheimer's disease is that they very often suffer from depression, as do elderly people in general. And anything that helps their depression can help their overall outlook on life and their interaction with their fellow humans. So that will have long-lasting effects.
And there's also anecdotal evidence that suggests that folks who are exposed to this therapy, there's a reduction in the need for antipsychotic medications over time.
Any other over here? And then in the middle? So the man on the aisle and then the woman in the middle.
My impression watching the film was
Yeah.
that the immediacy of having headphones was probably more important than just listening to music through speakers. Is that true? Because when I was watching it, I wondered why not just type in music in the nursing home? Or did it have to be a personal headset?
So I think that the personalization of the headsets is not as important as the personalization of the music. I think, putting it in headsets is sort of more of a logistical thing. You can't have music for 50 patients reverberating against the walls in nursing homes. And there are nursing homes and long-term care facilities all over the world that do music therapy, but sort of as a group experience that's not necessarily individualized, and that's sort of what this aims to do.
So right there in the middle.
I was
Oh,
very.
no, actually, it was over here, but anyway. Yeah. You go first and then.
Okay. I was very moved by this. I work with children, and I've developed software called MacScholar, where we have Max Music. And children who never want to read can't wait to go to MacScholar because they get music. And the words of the artists are under each song. And unfortunately, music has been taken out of schools today. So my question to you is, I was under the impression that music stimulates the whole brain. It's the only thing that really stimulates the whole brain. Is there any truth to that?
Well, Huntington, do you want to get the neurology of that? And then
I wouldn't say the whole brain, but it does stimulate large parts of the brain, as do most stimuli. That is to say, if you hear something or you read something and you have an interaction with it, it's surprising how many parts of the brain are engaged. So this isn't unique to music. It's true of most of our interaction with the outside world.
It is my understanding that we've been, one of our advisors is Dr. Brown, who runs the brain rehabilitation and research at the Mayo Clinic. And my understanding from him is that music involves so much brain geography that when you have an injury, at least in our cases, the injury to one part, another part's able to compensate for it, or you can even begin to see improvements with plasticity in the injured part. So, we had one person describe a song he used to know is sort of buried there, and he was sort of forging a new path to it, sort of kind of a literal description of it, but that another person that we're working with told me that he was working on his Bach prelude, and his aunt came in, and he wasn't able to speak to her. He has a brain injury, and yet he could continue to play. So in some remarkable way, I guess it just involves so much brain geography that that it's able to compensate.
So right there, that woman. Yeah. And then I think Doug?
Wonderful, wonderful. For the past 20 years, I've worked in nursing homes in the LA area, probably been to dozens of them. I'm a speech pathologist. And I've used singing a lot in my work with people with strokes, which has just been just an amazing thing to see what happens when somebody struggles to talk. But the question I have is the nursing home I am seeing, and this is just my observation, is more and more people that are actually coming to nursing homes, traditional nursing homes, have the diagnosis of psychosis and schizophrenia. So I was very, very interested in seeing what the transformation of the woman with schizophrenia in the movie. And the amount of psychotic drugs takes your breath away. I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm just a novice, but I just was wondering if this is a kind of program that could eventually really reach out to that particular population, because it was remarkable to see what happened with that woman in the movie. So, but I think we're going to see more and more people with the psychoses actually being there. I don't know if it's just Los Angeles or if this is happening nationwide.
Dr. Potter, do you want to comment on that?
I wish I could give you an answer. We don't know. The stimulation in the people with Alzheimer's disease is incredibly clear. This is the first time that I've seen any indication that it might help somebody who's got either bipolar disease or schizophrenia. So I think it's worth further examination. Of course, this movie is a set of anecdotes, essentially. And what we'd really like to do is to be able to see how much music therapy helps a large number of people, what kind of therapy. Does it have to be something they've learned as a child or as an adult? Or can it be a music they may have heard but not listened to attentively? There's a whole lot of variables here that we can probably improve on with this beachhead.
But I think, I'm not speaking towards efficacy because I don't know in that population, but just as far as availability is concerned, one of our goals is the production, and Dan Cohen's goals through Music and Memory is really to make this personalized therapy a standard of care in all 16,000 nursing homes in the United States. And we thought it would happen from sort of the very top down, but it seems to be happening at the state level. So for instance, Wisconsin, at their state legislature, has now mandated that Music and Memory must be in all of their nursing homes. Florida is on its way. When we screened in Utah, someone raised their hand and said, I want to give $100,000 to put this in Utah nursing homes. The same thing happened in Toronto to the tune of $250,000. So I think if it's available and that population, is pushed into nursing homes and long-term care facilities, that would be great and would serve them well. Yeah.
I mean, is there an association that is working with this program? Because when I walk into a nursing home, you can almost immediately know when the whole recreation therapy department is really on top of all of this, that it really can help.
Not formally, but I think, as I said before, from a caregiver perspective, the effects of this therapy are great for them, so when they experience it, they're sort of keen to sort of hop on. In 500 nursing homes, none of them have disavowed the therapy. So every nursing home that Music and Memory has started and it still remains.
So I understand. So you mentioned the Doug, the husband of
Doug,
one of the...
did you want to say something? And if not, would you mind to stand up and say hi?
just
This
to
is Doug
say hi.
Thompson.
We have time for 2 more questions, actually.
Okay. So
Mary Lou's husband.
Here is Doug.
Hello. First of all, what I would really like to do is to thank Dan and Michael for the huge work and effort that's gone into making Music and Memory possible, and secondly, for documenting what's possible in this film. It wasn't easy. When there was a mention Michael started in his bedroom, he literally started and almost ended in his bedroom. So this has been a lot of work. I was just going to comment on the question about how long does it last. For Mary Lou, like I think most everyone who suffers from Alzheimer's, she wasn't always a happy person. She was frustrated, terribly frustrated. She wanted to express herself and she couldn't. And the one thing that music did, as you could see, was helped her feel better about life. And that's really important. So as Dr. Potter said, there's 2 things we must do. We got to fund Dr. Potter and his research, and I'm fully in support of that. And secondly, we've got to do what we can to help people who are already suffering with this disease, because it's a terrible, terrible disease. And this program does work. Thank you.
Wow. I actually think, unless there's a burning question out there, that's a good place to wrap up, because what an inspiring thing. But I want to say one more thing. The families of the patients who were featured here, including you, are also a very important part of the contribution that you made just in opening your lives is very valuable as well, because having worked with students on documentaries, getting people to open up, especially with difficult subjects, is extraordinarily challenging. And people who take that step to broaden the discussion around an important question are very brave. And so congratulations to you as well. So thank the panel for an inspiring discussion. And on Thursday evening, we'll be continuing with the healing and the arts. So check it out. Thank you again.